Well, Yvonne, Israel isn't saying it's a ground invasion, but the longer Israeli troops stay in there, that's certainly what it looks like. At the moment, troops have been physically on the ground there for more than 48 hours. They have said that they have been operating in the northern part of Gaza alongside tanks and with assistance from both artillery outside Gaza and from the air and from the sea. I've been in Sderot in the last few hours, which is the town about 1 kilometre from the Gaza border, and I could see the skyline of northern Gaza. It's the first time in a few days we've actually been able to see that skyline because it's been so hazy here, but it was a crystal clear morning today, and you could see above the skyline of northern Gaza was just this one unending cloud of smoke. We saw massive plumes that have risen up into the air from those aerial strikes, and we saw a huge amount of damage and destruction that had been caused to the buildings in northern Gaza. We could physically see these giant mounds of rubble and concrete, the evidence of Israel's aerial strikes. Interestingly, while we have been in Sderot, we've also been listening to gunfire within Gaza, which suggests that those troops on the ground are actively engaged with Hamas militants in gun battles, and that's what we've been hearing from both Hamas and from the Israeli military. Now, the information that we get out of there, it's a little bit difficult to verify because we're only hearing it from the military and they're not giving us a lot of information. And alternatively, we're also hearing from Hamas and they're also not giving us a lot of information. It is quite hard to verify exactly what is going on, but I think it's pretty important to remember that in theory, Israel looks like it should have the upper hand here in that it has these very highly trained special ops commandos that have gone in there on the ground. They've got this massive arsenal of very extensive and advanced weaponry, certainly more advanced than Hamas. But this is Hamas territory. This is where Hamas lives. It's where they train. It's where what they would say their fighters train. And so this is literally urban warfare now. And what we've sort of been seeing is that Israel is clearing a path physically with its bulldozers and its tanks because there's so much damage in there. It can't get its tanks around what is quite narrow streets in Gaza. And there's also so much destruction. They need to physically clear a lot of that rubble out of the way to get their massive machinery through there. But also there's a lot of activity on the ground. Israel says it's, possibly going door to door in northern parts of Gaza trying to look for Hamas fighters. And interestingly, the objective of this, although Israel won't say exactly what the objective is, it seems that hostages are front and centre. Those some 230 odd hostages that Israel says are still held captive within Gaza. We know some of them, if not all of them, are being held in that complex network of tunnels that has been built by Hamas under Gaza. So no doubt Israeli troops are trying to figure out exactly where those tunnels are and what they can do to try and rescue those hostages.
Allyson, the largest aid convoy since the start of the war has entered Gaza, but still not enough to meet the needs of civilians.
I think people on the ground there would say it's been a paltry amount, to be frank. I want to put it into perspective for you. We're seeing maybe 10 to 20 trucks going through that Rafah border crossing, which is the crossing of Egypt and Gaza. 10 to 20 trucks a day. That's what we've been seeing for the last couple of days. Before there was a humanitarian crisis there, before this war broke out, there was 300 to 400 trucks per day. So that really puts into perspective how little aid has been going through there. We've seen some really distressing images coming out of Gaza over the last 24 hours of people in desperation breaking into UN warehouses just to get wheat and flour to make bread, because that's all there really is there at the moment. They are so desperate for food. They're desperate for water. I was speaking with a family in Gaza not too long ago, and they told me that their children hadn't eaten for 2 days, let alone forget the adults. The adults, they're not worrying about themselves, they're worried about their children, and it's sheer desperation for them now. And as your last guest was mentioning, the fuel situation, Israel says it won't allow fuel into Gaza because it believes it'll be intercepted by Hamas and used for militant activities. But the hospitals in Gaza, they need that fuel. It runs the generators that literally allows them to keep the lights on, to be able to operate and to save people's lives. There are more than 100 premature babies that are in incubators in hospitals across Gaza. If that fuel runs out, those incubators can't run and those babies will possibly die. That is the stark reality of how dire the humanitarian situation is there, which is why you have bodies like the United Nations warning that Gaza is really on the brink of societal collapse.
Allyson Horn in Ashdod, thanks for updating us.